Welcome back to Film-Studio-Taku-in-Japan. I promise I will use that sparingly, at least for now. So, to anyone who watched my last stream, not the one that's still up, but basically it was this stream, I apologize. That was terrible. The audio had a feedback loop, which I really hope I fixed, and I'm going to stop talking for about 10 seconds right now to test that. Bear with me. Talking for about 10 seconds right now to test that. Okay, and that's less than 10 seconds because I seem to have improved the delay. Okay, so basically, I know there's a late night stream for anyone who's up late like me. I am going to get rid of my headphones because this seems to be working and I hate hearing myself. It distracts me a lot. But yeah, so basically what this was last night was just a little walkthrough of my workflow and just kind of quick ways to edit in Darktable. Anyone that doesn't know, Darktable is open source photo editing software, and it rivals Lighttable, and Photoshop in many regards, and I would say even surpasses it in some regards. Now, keep in mind, I used Photoshop very limitedly. I had to use it for work a long time ago, and there are certain things in there that I like, but generally speaking, everything in there that I could see was here in Darktable. So I'm going to show you really quickly. These are kind of out of order now because, you know, I had edited them last night one by one, and then anyways, I had to make a new folder, and when I put it back together, it didn't quite go together right. Pretty close, but not quite. So these are some finished images. I'm going to show you really quickly 3 finished images that I was pretty happy with the results of, and fairly limited. I'd worked on these, not these exact ones, but a lot of these images, I took them back in fall, obviously, and I worked them pretty extensively and was fairly happy with them, but there was a few little things I didn't like about them. And a lot of that had to do with the fact that I had just gotten the Fuji GFX 100S right before that. These are all taken with the 250mm lens with no adapter. Usually I use an adapter for when I do wildlife, but for portraits, I keep it just naked glass, basically. So yeah, I've learned some tricks since then and figured out ways to manage GFX files a little bit better in Darktable, because before that I was using a Nikon system. So definitely a learning curve anytime you go from one system to the other in your NLE, because things just don't behave the same. Color science is different, all that stuff. So yeah, this one is I think, really nice image. I really just like the overall feel of this image. I was really happy with how this one turned out, and that was really not much work on that one. We might do actually a repeat of that just to show you how I got to that process. Try to get back to that process anyways, or those results. So here's another one. You know, it's just fairly simple image, fairly simple pose, but again, I really like it. And anyone wondering if you can get bokeh with a 250mm lens, I want you to realize that this is let's see, I'm pretty sure wide open. Okay, because this one's edited. We'll see in a second here when we get to the unedited files what the f-stop was and stuff. But you know, here you see there's some detail in the background, but I've said this before, the thing about the GF 250mm lens, a phenomenal lens, that even when there is detail, the way it renders the detail is so very likable. It's accurate, like bokeh that reproduces the detail like no other bokeh I've ever seen. I will zoom in a little bit on this, but this is, I can't go too much because this is actually a small JPEG that I exported to but anyways, if you get a little bit closer in on your subject, you can blur out completely. But I really like the way this looks. So it's a great shot in general. The highlights, you know, reflections, the colors that her umbrella is catching, and you're really going to see in the next one. I definitely went a little heavy on what was possible here with that. I mean, color was already there. You see we got these deep greens back here, a little bit of yellow, these reddish purple tones from the leaves back here, which carries off to here. You have these great shadows coming in here, the leaves behind, and this blue tinge from the sky. Was raining, but there was a little bit of blue sky poking through here and there, as well as sunlight. So it just gave this really great look to, you know, a relatively, this is usually the cheaper umbrellas you can get in Japan. In fact, I think now, I could be wrong. It's happened to me at least twice before. There's actually kind of this, I didn't find out it's actually kind of a loose, we'll say loose official rule in Japan. Basically, if you don't have an umbrella and it's raining, or if somebody takes your umbrella, actually it's more if somebody takes your umbrella at a bar, which happens a lot, people mistakenly take the wrong umbrella, you're free to take another umbrella. Now, don't quote me on that. You might have some bars where people are a little bit more uptight, but the bars that I frequent, they're just like dozo dozo. And I want to say that we may have, no, because it was raining. She must have had an umbrella already. But there's been situations where I've been with models and we just find umbrellas. Also, you'll see them on the side of the street sometimes. Either they're slightly broken or somebody just lost it. Anyway, so people are not too shy about just grabbing a random umbrella. Regardless, I digress. Really, really love this image. Again, this was edited for Instagram, so that's as big as it gets right now. But no, if I really, really was doing this to make it the absolute best image possible, I might rework some of the contrast in the face a little bit. But overall, I'm very happy with that image. So now, we're going to do really quickly here, we're going to take some of these images, hopefully faster since I've already done this once. We have the JPEGs and the RAWs. I'll probably work one RAW towards the end of this, but right now we're just going to start with the JPEGs. And what we'll do, I'm going to be a little bit brave. We're going to start with this one. This is that image. I'm going to try to repeat. Let's see if we can get to that same level with this. This is the JPEG. Now, my workflow, as I mentioned before, has changed as I use this NLE with, I think they're called NLEs, right? This photo editing program with the GFX files. I used to use Film-RGB fairly often, but I also, you know, it's one of the things I most often would debate over whether or not to use it, and often not use it, because just the way it affects the image is not always nice. This thing here, sigmoid, I'd never seen it before. It seemed to have just popped up out of nowhere this last month. I've started loving it. It really is kind of a savior when it comes to these GFX files. You see it all already, like that's a finished product kind of, right? But we're going to also do local contrast. And the standard stuff on here is pretty good. I may go into the local contrast a little bit later and adjust it, but basically what I do these days, I used to do so much work on these photos, and sometimes they were amazing and sometimes I just threw them away. I'm trying to get to the point where I don't throw away any files. I like to be able to actually accomplish something with all the work I do rather than have to do it over. So show you really quickly, and again, I actually, well, nobody probably heard this in the last video because of that garbled audio. But unfortunately, for some reason, I'm going to try and work this out in the future, but what I'm looking at right now, when I click on color lookup table, you're seeing these little patches. I'm actually seeing the list, and this is going to happen a lot, unfortunately, in what I'm doing today. But what I'm seeing is the Fuji emulation. So you have Fuji Astia emulation. Sorry, I need to drink some water here. Classic Chrome. We have monochrome. We have Provia, Velvia, Helmholtz, Cole, Krausch, monochrome, and then we have IT8 skin tone. So you see most of these are Fujifilm emulations or lookup tables, or you can call them Film-Studio, right? So here is Astia, and wow, that looks. Astia is the one that I don't always use because sometimes it does a little bit weird things to the contrast. At least that's my view of it. What's going on? I'm clicking now. I'm clicking. Okay. And a lot of times it'll look great like this, and then I'll go to Provia, which tends to always be really good. I'm gonna go now Classic Chrome. Not a bad look, and I'll show you something with Classic Chrome here in a second. Monochrome, sure. If I was gonna work a monochrome image, it would be a little bit different process. We're not gonna do that today. Provia, see now, we're gonna go back and forth. Provia to Astia. You see that? Like they're very similar. Provia tends to give just a little bit more shape in tone in the face, especially. Velvia, now this is going to be a little bit overkill, but not bad. That's not bad. I think a lot of people actually would like that image. Trying to repeat the things that I said yesterday as much as possible. So something to note, and it kind of pertains to Velvia, is Japanese girls in general, they want to be very fair skinned. You could say white, but they just in general they don't want to be tan. They wear a lot of sunscreen. They often wear clothes to cover their arms and stay as white as possible. So it's a tricky thing because I love, you know, I lived in Mexico when I was 16 for 4 months, and I love tan, beautiful brown skin. And Japanese women, when you do see tan Japanese women, oh, it's so beautiful, but they generally don't want to be tan. So, and this woman is, I believe she's originally from Okinawa, so she is just prone to be a little bit more tan because Japanese history, people have been in Japan for, it's pushed back now about 20,000 years in the archaeological records, but realistically we're talking more like 50,000 years more. So people in the South Japan have presumably evolved slightly more, what's it called, melanin. So anyways, I think we are going to, well, real quick, I'm going to show you Classic Chrome, what I wanted to show you. Classic Chrome, and there's a separate Velvia module up here all by itself. Classic Chrome and Velvia together I have found to be very likable. You see that it starts off more refined, more subtle than the color lookup tables Velvia, but we can go extreme. I'm going to take the mid-tone biased. I hope you guys can see this. I have strength and mid-tone biased. Taking the mid-tone biased all the way down. The strength, we're not going to go all the way up because it's going to get ridiculous, but you see you can get really pretty intense with that. We're going to take the strength right about there, and then we're going to take the mid-tone bias a little bit over. Mid-tone bias, to me, it's basically just add saturation to tones. Wide version. I am self-taught, and someday I would like to go to either a photography school or a color grading school. I can kind of pick up some tricks first. So yeah, you know, again, I like this image, but I know from experience that she doesn't want to look that. That's probably a little bit better image for her. And a little bit about this woman. She's actually, I would call this a very strong Japanese woman. She is as close as you're going to get to an OG in Japan. She's from my neck of the woods, and I talked about this area before. I'm not going to really talk too much about it right now, various reasons. but we're going to take the velvet off again. Okay, we're going back to, I think we're going to do Asti on this one. Yeah, we're going to do Asti because this goes back to I think it gives a little bit more fair skin tones while keeping the colors here in the umbrella, which is what I'm going to work on in a second here. Anyways, so this woman's, her stage name, she's actually a rapper, hip-hop artist, is Susie C. And she's been in the scene longer than most, and she does a lot of live shows in Tokyo and even my area. And I actually have I think I've actually shared some images of her in the past on stage, and there'll likely be more of those coming. Probably do some shows in the summertime. So yeah, she's she's pretty hardcore, and it's relatively funny because I have a friend who's also from this area, and I would consider her a pretty unshakable person. But I showed him some of her samples of her audio, her rapping, on I forget what format, but anyways. It was pretty funny because he kind of got a shocked face, and then he told me, he's like, she's kind of scary. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, the stuff she's rapping about, like, kind of scary. Like, she's rapping about, I don't know, maybe, I mean, I guess it doesn't matter. That's what she's rapping about, but like killing people and stuff like that. Anyways, kind of gangster. So honestly, I've listened to her stuff, and there's some English intermittent, but I can't understand the lyrics. But, you know, likable hip hop. And it's just kind of funny though that she shook him up a little bit with her lyrics. Very nice woman though. I will say though, it's the shoot before this, we did 2 days. This day obviously was raining. It was very cold and raining. It almost was cold enough to snow. But the day before that, we only had like 10 minutes due to scheduling problems. But when I first showed her the images I took, she so happy and shocked by how good they were. Like, I think she just thought I was just some kind of casual cameraman, and she said something like, "You're too good," or something. I don't know exactly what she said. It was Japanese, and then she punched me relatively hard in the shoulder, but it was a positive thing. She was basically, she's a little bit OG, like I said. So just show you really quickly, I don't generally use shadows and highlights anymore. It is something you can, like, there's some ugly things that happen if you don't adjust here. Actually though, I'm liking that. I likely think I did this before with this one. So that's, got a sneeze coming. Try and stop it from happening, just a second. Okay, sneeze averted. That's actually, which do you like? I'm actually leaning towards that. Go here and drop the shadows a bit. And I hope you're seeing this. We have shadows, highlights, white point, radius. Let's see here what's happening when I do that. Okay, you can see that stuff. That's great. Okay. Yeah, you see there's no difference now. Turning it on and off. It's actually, I think, a sign, not to toot my own horn here, but it's a sign of a good colorist though, is when you adjust things sometimes. I mean, sometimes you obviously don't want it to be the standard, but when you turn off the module, like, you get everything perfect in the shadows and highlights. Like in this situation, I got everything where I was like, oh, that's perfect, and then I that's it on and I turn it off. It's exactly the same as what I had already done with color balance RGB, and that's part of why I don't bother with the module anymore. You might like this look right here more. It's more contrast, it's more light. I like this look personally more. Now, we're pretty close. I'm not going to go way crazy with this. I'm going to touch up on the contrast and highlights a little bit. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go in and we're going to hit that umbrella with some color. Already got it, but we're going to softer or not? Question. I think we're keeping it there for now. Okay, so to hit the rainbow umbrella here, what I'm calling it, is we're going to go into color balance RGB. you watched my video the other night, the one that's still up, you remember I told you be very, very careful with color balance RGB. Usually you don't want to do more than 2 instances if you're running, let's say, an 8-core Ryzen processor. This is just based on my experience. I'm running, I believe, a 1700, but I'm running it fairly overclocked. It's running like, actually way faster than the 17X. I forget. I'm not a professional overclocker, but I've done a lot over the years just because I usually like to push my system what I can get out of them as a way to save money. And honestly, I find that most systems eventually develop hiccups. Gotta upgrade every 5 years. I'd say average 5 years is what I try to push out of them. I know a lot of people upgrade every 1 or 2 years. I try to push 5 years out of most of my systems. This one right now, well, I just upgraded the motherboard, but most of everything I got here is getting up to about 3 years. But I'm probably going to upgrade soon because the GFX 100S push thing. I had a so I digress. Color balance RGB. So normally I would do the whole image, but we're just going to focus on the umbrella right now because I really do like this image already. I think I could go back through later and do more, but I already have an image I'm happy with. So just for the sake of showing you. But I think I said it. I think I completed that thought. I tend to often get side railed, but basically, yeah, don't do more than 2 or 3, really more than 2 RGB instances. The reason being that it is CPU intensive, and I suspect it's GPU intensive as well. And there's something I forgot to do. We're going to remove this, but we'll do this first. So this mask does not need to be perfect. We're just going to keep it off of the background, and we're going to keep it out of her hair and out of her space. Feather a little bit, not much. We won't feather this at all. One of those things where masks sometimes need to be very highly detailed, but it's not always necessary. And I find that it's a good way to waste time is if you get too OCD about your masks. I used to be so OCD about every single mask I ever created, but realistically, I could do a lot less than I'm doing right now. Still get globally something, I think. So here we go. We got a mask. Bring this up a little bit more because we're going to feather it and it's going to probably leak. Probably going to leak into her hat a little. Careful. I usually use a pen. I have a little pen tablet here, like it's a canvas. It's a little bit small. I want to get a bigger one. Eventually, I actually would like to just get a full size. Like this is a 32-inch 10Q monitor I'm using. I would like to have basically that size of a tablet for editing. Partially because my near vision is getting a little bit weak, and just that I like to draw. I do sketches and I do sketches and paintings, but I don't like being confined to a little space all the time. So here we go. Less talk, more action. Okay, we're going to be very gentle with those highlights. We don't want to go too high on them. So this is perceptual brilliance grading here. Fancy word for fine tuning all of different light levels, highlights, mid shadows. Yeah. I'm gonna do something a little bit later, try and get it a little bit less hazy, but for now that's not bad. Now here's where we're really gonna try and work it. Bring up highlights a little bit. Try and get the blue that you saw earlier around the edge that the sky was reflecting. Definitely play with the mid-tone a bit. Shadows. I don't do so much, but that umbrella is firing a second. I mean, I can, just for the record, we can go crazy. But the problem with that is then you have these highlights or colors here that are outshining the colors behind them. Just right, so, right around here. Keeping it. You can even take this back down. Still keeps them. Actually, can work these later. I mean, now that you know, you see it. Most people do. So this is linear chroma grading. Don't ask me. We're going to take it down someplace. Power something. I like having a little bit of white haze on. Shadow, probably. And add a bit down. Then contrast, we're going to add a little bit of contrast. Yeah, that takes away haze. Now we're getting vibrance a tiny bit up. And this is probably overkill, but I just want to give you a good idea of how to do this. And then we almost don't need to do it, but we're going to just feather ever so slightly. See, if you do it too much, that's not bad actually doing it, but it takes away some of the contrast. Accurate way to do it. Takes away some of the highlight roll off. So I think that's okay right around there. Now to give you an idea what we just did, we're going to turn it off. Go, see, I mean, fine before, but now it looks gray to us. That's just a better image, in my opinion. Let me know what you think in the comments. I am a small channel still. Oh, now, okay, the last thing we're going to do on this image is we are going to get rid of that. And this easy, but to do it well is a little tricky on this particular image because you have the hair right up here against this. It doesn't always work the way you think it should. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with this just little area right around the edge of her hair. We're going to create a little mask here. We're seriously just going to work that little tiny area because that's the most ITA part of this. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring this over somewhere else that is similar in overall color, light, such. Take away these little, calling them feathering points. I don't know what they're called. As I said in my last video, if anybody knows how to set up Darktable where the default is to not have feathering points extended, I would be very happy because I like to get rid of them. If I want them, I would rather set them or have a switch to like just click them off, on and off quickly. So you see, it's a phenomenon here. This is not usually how this works, but every time I do this image, something to do with the proximity of her hair, I have to go find a lighter area. Still, usually I do a little bit bigger area and I find that, there we go. Almost. I've never been able to fully get, just on this particular image, for some reason, we're going to expand this area. Her hair into it. Oh, you know, why would I want to do that? Like, 'cause that's messing up her hair, but that's so weird that that's the way it's working. Somebody understands that, I would like to know why. Really like to know why that's doing that. So, yeah, if I try to back it away from her hair, it just pulls it, oh, right about there. See, okay. But it's pulling her hair out just slightly. I could work on that by not going to. We're gonna pull up something right here. There we go. It doesn't look great now. It's gonna look better in a moment. For it, you'll remember it, but you wouldn't know it was there if I hadn't just done that. Now we're doing a secondary one. It's gonna be a lot better. Take away a lot of that problem. First time I ever did this, I just one mask over the whole one, and it looked fine, but so the stream that I deleted, audio problems, did this. Works relatively. Here we go. Okay, so we're just gonna forget about that now. Okay, then we're doing a bigger one. We're gonna just kind of go bigger, better, better. All this. We can start not actually even worrying about these mask points. Don't ever let one of these little points occur, by the way. They're so hard to get rid of once you do that. You have to send something out big, get to it. That aspect of dark. Keep them on no matter what. Grr. I've gotten way better at not letting that happen lately. But yeah, you get these little grabs sometimes. Sometimes they're impossible if they're like find something. Probably talking a little bit too quiet, and I apologize for that. So yeah, this whole thing, bring it over here, pull these in, because kind of what I was saying there, when they're overlapping other math, the problem, and I just did there, whole thing. Back in, and come down here, and yeah, we're basically now to where we can just throw caution to the wind. I'm not going to try and make this perfect, but relatively. One of those things too, where when you realize too how small this area is compared to the rest of the image, you're kind of going to realize that it doesn't matter. It's not perfect. No way. Because it doesn't get noticed. Because it is raindrops, which basically wherever they want, governed by very strict laws. I don't like that, I know. What we're gonna do here, we're gonna try. Yeah, I'll just show you again. So almost you don't notice that. You do. When I did last night, it was a lot better. But what we're gonna do is new instance, so we don't have to go over the others. We're gonna try our very best. See if we can get a precise. I'm gonna go further along this edge because we don't need those loose hairs sticking out anyway. Further along this edge. So D. Now do our best. I really do want to get to those other pictures. They're going to be a lot quicker than this one. This is why I was kind of saying I'm being brave by starting with this one, because this is the longest one. So if you're getting bored with this and you see where it's going and you're like, oh, that's great, good job, and you want to see the other images, you go ahead and skip forward. I won't I won't hate on you for it. Sorry, I've got a lot of little distractions going on around me at the So there we go, and then we bring this over. Still not happy with that. There, okay, that's sort of hiding it. There we go. That's closer, acceptable. I think we're gonna then we can down a little bit. We're gonna down all that anymore. Try and bring it along the edge. There we go. That's what we basically mimic. There we go. Okay, problem solved. Now, look at that. Nobody would ever know, right? There's in there. No, I might brush that up a little bit, but I think we're done. Nice image. Just to show, duplicate this just in case I want to work on it later. Great feature of Darktable, you can duplicate it, and it just saves two separate files. It's not CPU intensive because you just have made an another file. Now, though, we can look at the original. What were we looking at before this? Okay, so it's a nice file. Nothing wrong with it. We went from that to, come on, oh, to that. I think that's better. How about you? How close did we get, by the way, to the, there we go. So that was the one we just came out with that one. That again. Okay, and then this is the one you can see. The one I edited earlier was a bit darker. I almost like the one we just worked on more, though. Almost a bit dark. So, and by all means, let me know what that one or this one. Maybe something in between. Deal. So let's change to one for the sake of me staying awake that I didn't touch last night. I believe. I really like this one, partially because you can see her cute little tattoo here. I'm gonna ask her next time what the meaning of that is. You know, and she's framed nicely. You got this little hint of foreground vegetation bokeh, as well as this Japanese sign here for the park. So yeah, it's a nice image. What I'm gonna do, you know, for the sake of time, because I wanted to show you guys this anyways, what we're gonna do is we're going to go in here to that file. We're gonna do selective copy. Now we don't want to do the retouch, and we don't want to do the color balance RGB, because that was specifically in this case for the umbrella. Usually I would copy the color balance RGB. And we'd have no reason to keep the shadows and highlights because that was already turned off anyways. Everything else I think we can keep on, and we'll just see how well this works. So this is just copying the settings from that photo to this photo. Not bad. There we go. Finished product. Pretty much. That's pretty much a finished product. So rather than show you all that again, I'm going to just say that that's pretty good. With this photo, the one thing I would do, because there is light hitting her eyes nicely, and it is a pretty far away photo. So this is where, if you have a slower system, do not do this with RGB, color balance RGB. Do this with exposure or something like high, brightness, contrast type stuff, or even shadows and highlights, or even you can even do local contrast, but local contrast is relatively well. What I'm doing is I'm just really is only going to be noticed by either the very, very observant or by if you printed this large, then you would actually know. I did it again. Come on. Fine. Oh. All crazy now, isn't it? We're just gonna start that one over. Don't kill yourself for little things like that. Okay. That crazy one up here. We're gonna pull this first. The more complicated your masks get, the more that happen. Especially if you're doing lots of point tight areas where it's curving around and stuff. Round masks don't have that problem. Okay. So I'm actually gonna hold the mouse in the center and slightly, oh, mark. Actually pull, oh, come on. There we go. Use the whole mask size to get it out of that. I don't want anything down here. Line. It's gonna do it anyways a little bit, but it's gonna actually affect her skin. So now, okay, we have that mask. We are going to do it on the other eye. I will mention briefly, sometimes it's advantageous to do separate masks for each eye. Reason being that lighting is different in each eye. One may need to be brighter or darker than the other. One may already have more saturation than the other. So keep that in mind. Always look for those. I still sometimes forget to check for anything kind of out of place because they're going to be the one first. Okay, that looks like good placement. Okay, so now we're going to, I always click this just to get those masks to go away. I'm not distracted by them. Start with, actually, you know what? With eyes, I usually start with contrast. First the contrast. More light. Do it other ways, and we can adjust the contrast later again. Just to let me kind of see what I'm working with a little bit more there. See, nice. I mean, we go extreme here. If I want to, I know a lot of people eyes times, but in general, I don't know. At this point in my photography career, I really try to strive for. I keep hitting this a mouse button that sometimes. Control Z will go back one step and bring everything back. Control Z and Darktable goes back. Control X goes the way mine is set up. Shadows will definitely do. One of those things where, what do you really want these eyes to look like? I kind of like that duller look, but knowing that this is such a small portion of this photo globally, going brighter or more saturation probably makes more sense. Chroma grading is definitely going to affect that, so you get a little more contrast while keeping saturation by adjusting those highlights. Torn between the pop factor versus realistic factor. And this is where we're going to see what we can do with contrast. And we reverse it, and we're going to something to know though, like just show you really quickly. So like, okay, if you did want to do that, I wouldn't normally do that with contrast, but if you want to have these be like super bright eyes, and you're like, oh, but they look like they're drawn in, well, that's where you go again, feathering, but just the tiniest little bit feathering. See, if you do it too much, it starts to drag into the eyelids a little bit, like that, but like that. Look at that. How does that look globally? Like, yeah, see that little. Not gonna be in the final. When you see it, when you zoom in like that, it won't. That looks actually really nice though, but I want white that. I definitely don't contrast. Keep the contrast there, and we're gonna go back through. We're gonna start with global chroma and just see what we can get. Eyes, I tend to spend a little bit more time on than others because with GFX files, I mean, I can see all those as much as possible. Combination pop a little bit, but also really just off that detail in the files on. Files is just I realize I backtracked a little bit there, but I like that. Now let's see if you even would notice. No, you absolutely would not. It does highlight her color over me. Excuse me. We'll leave it for now. Not sure. I think we're gonna do one more. For anyone that watched my last video, I have a broken wrist right now. I do plan on telling a story. That's a kind of silly story. Not really my fault. Somebody spilled a beer or something on the bar floor, and the owner of the restaurant asked me to. He wanted to take a picture of me because I had my camera. The bartender, who I believe is going to model for me in the future, taking some photos of her, and then the bartender wanted to take a picture of me with her. And I said, sure. I handed my camera. I stood up and something. I hit something slippery and boom. I went back and landed on my wrist. I think it was because I was handing him the camera at the same time. So like I was trying to hand him the camera without dropping it. I fell back on my wrist with a bad angle. And it was just fractures. It was like 2 or 3 little fractures, but I knew immediately that it was broken. So like he helped me up. He took a couple pictures of me on the floor because he thought it was funny. I was on the floor, which is funny. When people fall, it's generally very funny. So I guess I'm telling the story right now. So yeah. Let's do. Oh, we're gonna do this one because it's great. Her eyes are catching the. We'll try again pasting though, because the reason I started talking about my wrist, which I am going to finish the story, but is because it's starting to hurt right now, and I need to go take some CBD for that. CBD, good stuff. Ask for it by name. Isolate, not that other stuff. Is that a bee behind it? Is that a blue bee? There's a bee. Oh, that's. Doesn't that look like some masking stuff that got left behind? Anyways, so I can only do this for a few more minutes before the paint. Pardon the man. We're gonna read that. That was a raw file that no, what am I doing? It's this one. We're gonna discard the history. Discard the history. So anyways, the bartender helped me up, and he yeah, I just told him as soon as he helped up, I said I broke my hand, my arm. I knew I broke my arm. Really? And I was like, really? So the other part of the story is that there was a guy who I was talking to at the bar that was being very nice and pleasant to me. As soon as I told him I broke my arm, he told me that I was in the military and I've been shot. I know if you break your arm. It's just like, dude. Okay. The thing is, I'm gonna try to chalk this up to he was fairly drunk. I mean, there were shots of Jaeger going around, but it just kind of shocked me. I was like, dude, I definitely broke my arm. I don't react to pain the way most people do. But I've broken my shoulder before, so I knew that it was broken. Really? And he just kept telling me no. And then the part that just like I was in pain. I was a little bit buzzed, so it was sort of manageable pain. But anyways, this guy, a Japanese guy, came over, and I swear I've either met this guy before or he's a TV personality. Because this guy, like, I basically like I don't know what I was saying. Basically, I was basically still just trying to like gently let this other guy know that I broke my arm, and that guy like came over. The Japanese guy started saying something in Japanese. Obviously, I was pretty sure he didn't speak. Oh yeah, no, it's all good. I just broke my arm. I think I gotta go pretty soon. He just had the most laugh. He started laughing. Like, oh yeah, it's kind of funny, huh? And then he'd do the laugh again. I'm not gonna even do it. It's just this terrible. When you have a broken arm, especially, you're a little more sensitive. But oh my god, his laugh was horrid. Like the TV shows. If you watch TV shows in Japan, like there's these TV personalities on these variety shows that they just laugh at everything, no matter what it is, funny or not, and very much not what I needed at that moment. But this, it goes back to like just I've said it before. I'm to call myself an OG is not quite right, but let's just say that I actually exactly what I said before. I grew up a little bit harder than most white kids in the suburbs. But anyways, and that transfers over into who I am sort of down with the hip hop crew. So, and that's kind of who I tend to hang out with. So it's just really funny because here I was in a very different area. It was not my neighborhood. I was Yokohama waterfront area, and a guy came into the bar who looked a little hip hop. I'm trying not to say gangster, but you know what I'm saying, I think. Um, but yeah, he was like, I think he offered to buy me a drink. I was like, no, that's good. I think I gotta go soon. And he's like, what's wrong? He's like, oh no, well, I broke my arm, and no, I'm pretty far from home, and I probably need to go in and find a hospital. And he's like, you broke your arm, and like he took a genuine concern for me, and he actually, I was like, I told him you don't need to do that, but he actually called an ambulance for me. Ambulances don't really cost you money in Japan, but the the story, I'm going to stop there. The story goes on, and the silliness of what I had to do to actually get to the doctors because of various situations. But regardless, he actually took me to a taxi to meet the ambulance. I don't remember why that happened. I think he tried to take, oh, that's what it was. He tried to take me to a taxi to a hospital, and that hospital was closed. That was the beginning of it all. And anyways, bottom line is, really nice guy. He tried to help me. And any big city, you're gonna find a very swath of types of personalities. But I basically went from somebody who was my friend at the bar turning into somebody who didn't like me because I broke my arm, to somebody laughing like a maniac, Woody Woodpecker type character, to a very nice guy helping me out. And yeah, that's all. I broke my wrist. I haven't been able to do camera stuff for quite a while. My GFX just came back from repair. I had a broken LCD screen. I'm basically, I think for now I'm done with this. I think the rainbow thing could be done with this. You know what? Let's do that. I'm going to stop blabbing on about my broken arm. We're going to do the same rainbow thing. We're going to do it quick. Let's see, how quick could I work? It was like, okay, you have to, oh, and I got to do that too. You got to finish, we're going to do that first. Because the fact that the color made it harder last time. Let's see, we're going to cut the big chunk out first. Let's pretend that you have to have this all finished by 10 p.m. tonight. Okay, look at that. Wow, we got close just on that. And it's also falling asleep. That's why I use a pen and not a relationship. Not bad, right? Look at that. Ooh, we're getting close. We almost got the whole thing out. We're just going to go to a little spot all by itself. Now we've learned something about this following the hairline. Cut it out. We're going to cut out that highlight here. Hope that we get that same thing as last time. Oops. Okay, and we're going to pull in. Oh no, that's from the other one. We don't want to do that one. These ones. See, look at there. We pull it back over here. Get them. Let me know if you're getting anything from the tutorial. Seriously, if it's terrible, tell me nicely, respectfully, because I'm hoping that people who are maybe can't afford monthly subscription type editing software, you know who I'm talking about. People who are new to photo editing and just helpful tips. I hope there's some useful stuff in here. I think that going through several photos, my thought process is that going through several photos rather than just walking you like one very detailed edit, maybe it's a good way to kind of like learn experience. That's how I learned. How did that just not to that? That's more or less, okay? More or less. I'm not going to call that perfect, but more or less we achieved the result there, okay? What I would do next, though, I would. That's right, there's no feathering in retouch. Or no, there is. Gotta be. I don't have the one. There isn't. There really isn't. That's silly talk. That's just so we could have messed with the mask opacity. Why is that not? That. I think you take the mask opacity down, it should all suddenly be okay. We're gonna call it done for now. There's ways you can go. Yeah, that's all wrong right there. That's partially why I recommend doing smaller. That's because it's all the way up there. Ugly zone. Still bad. Still very bad. You saw I could do it earlier. You saw how to do it earlier. Remember how I did it earlier, and don't do it this way. Not your friend. Not the way to do it. Okay. For now. So I'm gonna say thank you very much for watching Film Studio Otaku Japan. I hope you did learn something from this. If nothing else, something about no, nothing. We learned nothing today. So I'm gonna end on that note. I'm gonna put my headphones back on, and we are going to find really good sound. Go out on. Oh no, trust me on the back. I got something in the works. Wait a second. Here it comes. That. Oh, this is it right here. Thank you for watching Film-Studio-Taku-in-Japan. Please check out my website, Film-Studio-Japan.com. I sell high quality GFX prints, landscapes, nature, birds, beautiful stuff in general. Check it out. Buy the largest, most expensive print you can afford. Support independent artists. Okay, I'm fucking it up. Sometimes I can play.